Last week, leaders of the Innovative School District, or ISD, announced the selection of Carver Heights Elementary School in Goldsboro as the second school to become part of this state takeover program for low-performing schools. And joining us first to share his thoughts is Superintendent of Wayne County Public Schools, Dr. Michael Dunsmore. Thank you for being here, Dr. Dunsmore.
Thank you for having us.
All right, well, let's get right into it.
Yes, sir.
How did you find out as superintendent that Carver Heights had been selected for takeover by the ISD?
We got a phone call from Dr. Hall telling us that we were being taken over. Obviously, we pay very close attention to the data. We knew we had a struggling school, but we were going on the process that they followed last year. So schools that had school improvement grants were exempt. So we assumed we were still exempt this year. There was no communication that those rules had changed.
Right, because you were actually, I mean, Carver Heights was actually on the list to be considered last year, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And so we were shocked. We changed the configuration of that school 3 years ago. We're in our third year now, and you needed at least 5 years of data, which we haven't received that yet, and we had a school improvement grant. So we were a little shocked we got that call.
Now, the Innovative School District, obviously they were looking at a number of schools. I think there was actually 6 schools that were announced publicly as being on the short list to be considered. So I'm assuming then that they went and evaluated and looked at not just the data, but the school. How did they evaluate Carver Heights?
You know, I'm not really sure. We're not sure. DPI came in and did an evaluation of our school system. And in my 10 years, I've been involved with numerous of those evaluations. They didn't follow their own protocols with those. They didn't ask us to prepare any information. And it was really apparent they only looked at the first 2 weeks of school this year. And as you just said, we were one of those schools that were out several weeks with a hurricane. They actually come in and did that 2 days after we brought the students back. So we were starting the school year a second time. And when we wanted to rebut some of the things that were in that, we were told we couldn't because they had to have the report turned in.
Wow. Now, one of the things that you mentioned, Dr. Eric Hall. Eric was the superintendent of the ISD. He's been since promoted and there's a new superintendent. But he pledged early on that the communities would be very engaged in the selection process. How was the community in Goldsboro engaged?
Well, I got a call on a Thursday evening that they wanted to have a community meeting on Monday afternoon. We graciously put that together. We called out our communities. My community's angry. They come in, they ask a lot of questions. They weren't given answers. There's no plan of why we have to take you over. There's no plan of what we're going to do differently than what we're already doing. So a lot of the questions that were posed that afternoon weren't answered. It was held at a time when a lot of our parents are working, children were coming home from school that may or may not have had an opportunity to come in and have their voices heard.
Right. Now, there were, as I mentioned, there were 5 other schools on the announced short list. I mean, obviously, as a longtime superintendent here in North Carolina, you know the other superintendents in those districts. Did they go through the same process? Were they evaluated in community meetings, that sort of thing?
No, not compared to what we did. In fact, Dr. Hall told the state board at the last meeting they didn't go through all the protocols with all the systems because of the time constraints. And the process set down in the statute is that, and that's one of our complaints is this short window. They only looked at the beginning of this school year and not the whole body of work that we've done. I'm just shocked at what they're looking at and what's happening. And even from last year to this year and our plans that we've put in place, we work together as a group of superintendents. We're all working on low performance. We want to do what's best with our students. And for them to come in and say, we don't really have a plan of what we're going to do, and if this disrupts at everything we've put in place and the work we've done with our community, with our teachers, and with our leadership in the schools.
Well, let's ask more about that because look, we were talking about process, and the process is important, but the most important thing are the children.
Yes.
This is a school that has very poor academic results. Why do you think you and your team at Carver Heights can do a better job of turning this school around, clearly a struggling, low-performing school, a better job than the Innovative School District?
We're already doing it. Since I became superintendent 3 years ago, we've moved 4 schools off that low-performing list. In fact, 4 of our other schools that are on that list are showing significant progress. It's not a quick fix. It's not an overnight solution. It takes time. As I mentioned earlier, there's a group of 24 superintendents and all our staff that were involved in these restart programs for that specific purpose. So the transformational process and the restart process, we're already doing. We have that plan in place. I'm not waiting, coming in November and saying, we're taking your school over in August, but we don't know what we're going to do till we come in and take a look at that. I think that's a travesty to our students. My staff have a track record. We're in the second year of changing the configuration of those grades. This is just a huge disruption of what we're doing, and it's such a disservice to our children, our parents, our community, and I'm just shocked that they're doing this. It just makes no sense.
Now, what are some of the other approaches that you have been doing? You mentioned a couple of things. What are you doing differently?
So what is we worked with our other groups, and we do our intensive data work. We targeted training for our staff and weaknesses, getting in the classrooms, doing some collaboration with our classes, or in our teachers in our classes. We have 2 math teachers that are in the top 5% in the state. So we targeted math, and we brought them together and took a specific group of math teachers in Carver Heights, extended the time that we're teaching math. We're getting those master teachers in there to help them address those issues. We're talking about kids that are coming to school with a lot of struggles in their personal lives, and we're trying to catch them up. And so as we look at that and focus in on that, we also brought in the mental health supports. Through grants, we got more social workers, more people to come in and help them deal with other issues that are keeping them from learning. The other thing we implemented, it's having a huge success, is bonuses for our teaching staff. And we tied that to attendance at school for the teachers, because we want those teachers in there. We went out and did a lot of recruiting with bonuses, trying to attract our better teachers to come in and do that hard work.
Right. Well, just real quick, last word. Sounds like to me the law says you either have to turn the school over or you have to shut down the school. Sounds like to me you're ready to fight this.
I absolutely were ready to fight this. I told our county commissioners when we met in front of them, they heard the process, and they were, again, asking a lot of the same questions the community answered, and they're not getting those answers.
All right, well, we're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to keep talking about it, and we've got some guests to continue the conversation. Thank you for being here, Dr. Dunsmore.
I appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Yes, sir. When we come back, 2 members of the Goldsboro community join us, including the head of the Wayne County branch of the NAACP and a grandmother whose children and grandchildren attended Carver Heights Elementary. Before we go to break, see if you can answer this question. True or false? In North Carolina, charter schools are only required to have 50% of its teachers licensed to teach in the state.
Education Matters is brought to you each week in part by Paragon Bank, serving others, enriching lives.